Good afternoon. It's my privilege to be here, and I'm grateful to the organizers and to all of you who are here to hear this presentation. I'm going to try and compress years of research and experience that would take about 5 days to do in 15 minutes, so it's going to be an impossible task. I'm going to skip over a couple of the slides, but as we go along, I'll try and cover the things that need to be covered so that you understand the whole concept. I'm going to be talking to you about the Total Health Village and as a means to address poverty through participatory learning. It's a low-cost, high-impact technique for addressing poverty issues and achieving the Millennium Development Goals. And over here, we see a few examples. The diagram that you see there on the ground from Ecuador in a village called Apatug. And it's a technique called the Holistic Worldview Analysis. It's a tool that's a participatory tool that's used for working with communities to address their issues. And I'm just showing you a few examples. This is from Indonesia. You can see the level of community interaction. This is from Kenya, eastern Kenya, a village called Kibabwani, close to Mombasa. And this is at the interaction part. The person you see in uniform there is the village chief and the community. I want to give you a brief overview and explain a few quick things about the strategy. The vision and the strategy of the program is to support, empower communities to solve their own problems. And I think, before we start looking to see whose responsibility it is, we need to empower communities to address their own issues. A few salient features about the Total Health Village. It's a means to achieve total well-being. It's a means to impact a whole village. It's a completely participatory strategy that helps to identify, analyze, plan, and work with the community's own resource persons and engage them actively in solving their own problems. What is the role of the external organization, in this case, MAP International, is to be a link and a catalyst. It's a means to create a community-to-community link because we're looking to see how the church can be engaged in this whole process. So the church as a community and the village that is being worked with as a community. It's a process that is long-term, 4 or 5 years. It's a process that has continuous progress assessment as well as an attitude and a means to try and achieve relentless optimism, which is a long word, but attempt to continuously better ourselves in doing what we're doing. And each succeeding program, we've been able to bring down the costs so that it's something that can easily be replicated. Now, we call the Total Health Village the THV 50-40-10, and I want to just explain what that is. And it's in the form of a little story. There was a village that people lived on top of a cliff, and they kept looking down over the side of the cliff at the people who lived in the valley below. And the people in the valley below looked like they were very happy. And so they would all come to the edge of the cliff and look down, and every now and then someone would fall over the cliff. And the people at the bottom of the valley, because they were philanthropists, would take the people and run to hospital. And that became their mission. In due course of time, people would keep coming to the edge and keep falling over. And the people at the valley below, they continuously improved the quality of their response, introduced technology and got funding and so on, got ambulances and stuff. And they were continuously working towards reducing the downtime, the time between the person falling off the cliff and being taken to hospital. And as they continued to do that, that increased their sense of purpose. Till one day, One of the people down there on the valley below looked up and he said, "What if we build a fence at the edge of the cliff?" And you would have thought everyone would have been excited. Instead, they were so angry, they told him to leave the village. So this guy went up, and if you can see, there's a little ladder. I had to cut the story short so you don't have too much visualization. He went there and he sat with the people and he mobilized them to build a fence. And then he found that people were still falling off the fence, and he asked them, "Why is that happening?" They said, "Because we don't have enough on this side. That's why people go searching." And so he mobilized them to build a second fence, and you can see the second fence there. And that, in fact, describes what the Total Health Village is. On this side, 50% of our efforts are on community development, livelihood security, food security, skill building, and so on. 40% is on the prevention activities, water sanitation, vaccination, deworming, the preventive measures. And then the 10% is for those that fall off the cliff, where somebody else is there to take care of. So the Total Health Village is called the THV 50-40-10. The modus operandi is self-empowerment of communities and holistic integrated development. I want to continue and take a few things out of this so that we can talk about it. It's a means by which we get communities to take ongoing comprehensive action to improve their health and well-being. Though we talk of it as a total health village, it's really a well-being village. There's 7 characteristics of the total health village, and I just want to touch on these very briefly. We work in clearly definable communities. We focus on self-empowerment strategies. There are very clear project cycles. The approaches are holistic. There are partnerships. We don't want to do everything that needs to be done. We look to work with other partners who are like-minded and able to take on those responsibilities. We work with measurable, relevant results, and we continuously try to optimize so that our efforts are cost-effective interventions. Now, here's a framework for what we do. Imagine that oval circle there is a village. We seek out a point of entry, very specific, something that affects and influences the whole village. And then from there, we start developing our intervention. We respond to that need. We widen our scope, increase the areas of influence, because when you answer a critical need of a community, they begin to trust you to address other issues, till finally, we're able to influence the whole village. But how do we find out what the community's principal needs are? We use a technique called the holistic worldview analysis. We use 3 critical components of information. First, we do a livelihood analysis. I don't have enough time to give you all the details, but you can see here that in this community, 3 of the things that the community used was first, business, second, agriculture, and the third is through casual labor. These were the 3 principal sources of their livelihood. And the words on top there are biashara, kilimo, or kibaru, for those that are familiar with Swahili. The other component we look at is the problem analysis. And here you can see there are 4 major kind of problems that affect the community. And you can see them in the background there interacting on this issue. And here, again, is another photograph where you can see a woman taking leadership and facilitating the process. And here we're looking at the uncertainties. So the 3 basic forms of information, the livelihood, the problem analysis, and the uncertainty analysis. We also look at other parameters, like the household food security status. And you see, once we've collected this, we share it with the larger community and get them to feedback or correct or build on that information. Once we have that and get their feedback on it, we put it together in the worldview analysis. Now, that's what a worldview analysis looks like. All of those components that you had on the previous one are there. The three concentric circles, the innermost is what the community controls. The second outer one is what is influenced by outsiders. And the outermost, the yellow one, is the area in which goes outside of their area of control. This provides you with an analysis of the capacities and the vulnerabilities of the community. I don't have time to go into detail, but once you've done this, we can analyze the needs. We can also take it and transpose this information into a log frame. And those of you who are familiar with the log frame analysis, we could put it into this, create a Gantt chart and a complete strategy for development, including the budget that can be worked out with community members, even if they're not educated at all. Once we have this, we're in a position to go in for an integrated response, which is both empirical, dealing with the physical side, and the supernatural. I want to skip a few things quickly here and go to something that's very, very important in the whole process of transformational development. What is transformational development? It's progressive, permanent, God-intended change. I worked for 2 years in the heart of China, and there was no provision there for talking about God. So we used an alternate definition, progressive, permanent development to full potential, and found that it means the same thing. Now, what's our strategy for response? Once we are dealing with this analysis that gives us both the empirical needs and the spiritual needs, what's our strategy for response? Our strategy for response is fivefold, and I want to list that. And in the last few minutes, I want to just take you through some of those very critical things. The preparation for the work, presence of God's people in the place, prayer for healing of the land, the powers of darkness confronted, plans of action implemented, and the recreation of a new Jerusalem. I have just 2 minutes more, and so I'm going to just touch on this very briefly. The first one, preparation for the work. I have increasingly become aware, and we are seeing this over and over in different countries, that the battle on the ground has to be preceded by the battle in the heavenlies. And that is the preparation. Preparation through prayer, a fourfold strategy at the principalities and powers level, at the political and other power level, at the implementer level, and at the grassroots level. I can't go into details of this, but if those of you are interested, I could send you some details on this. The second thing is God's people on the ground. Psalm 125:3 has a beautiful promise, but the first verse says, "As the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds his people." And Psalm 125:3 says, "The scepter of the wicked will not prevail over the land allotted to the righteous." And so when God's people are present in that place, God begins the process of transformation. Even before you do anything, just your presence there, the presence of God's people. Number 3, prayer for healing of the land. God's people at the location begin to pray for healing of the land, for a removal of the curse. When Adam and Eve sinned, the land was cursed, not by Satan, by God. And it's only God who can remove that curse. And then the people on the ground also pray for healing of the land. And you have that beautiful promise in 2 Chronicles chapter 7, 14 and 15. "If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, I will hear their prayer and heal their land." And the next thing that's important is confronting the powers of darkness. While you're there, inactivating those powers of darkness. Those of you who live in the West are least aware of some of the powers of darkness. And if people like us who have lived in Asia, I come from India, but I've spent a long time of my life in Southeast Asia, And we know and have experienced those confrontations with the powers of darkness. And the next thing is the plan of action implemented. We need to do these two simultaneously, responding professionally to the needs of the community with people who are trained to do development work. That's a photograph. You can see the analysis, worldview analysis that's being done in Cambodia. And finally, in the whole process of the creation, partnering with God in the creation or the recreation of a new Jerusalem. And I would encourage you to read Isaiah 65, verses 17 to 25, which talk about reduction in infant mortality rates, increasing life expectancy, people living in the houses they helped to build, people eating of the fruit that they helped to produce. I did what I could. Thank you.